The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. If it makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say, what the fuck, you're going to hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. I want to thank everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure you're following on social media. You can find the show at DILLIGAF_pod on all socials. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of good stuff. Really does help out the show, and I definitely need it. And now you can find all of that and more at my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of the screen. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's DILLIGAFpod@gmail.com. So today is one of those days we're talking about one of these things that makes me say, what the fuck? We're talking about wages, specifically wages in the U.S., which is where I live, obviously. And yeah, the wages that we pay our workers do not match what it costs to live here. That's it's as simple as that. The wages do not match the cost of living. And I'm talking about minimum wage. You know, minimum wage in the U.S. was established in 1938 with the Fair Labor Standards Act, and it was intended to be a living wage. There's a famous quote from FDR, the president at that time, says, "It seems to me to be equally plain that no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country." By business, I mean the whole of commerce as well as the whole of industry. By workers, I mean all workers, the white collar class as well as the men in overalls. And by living wages, I mean more than a bare subsistence level. I mean the wages of a decent living. That's what the minimum wage was always supposed to be. And there's so many idiots running around out here, especially on social media. They're rampant on social media, talking about minimum wage jobs are for high school kids and all this kind of stupid shit. Y'all are fucking morons if that's what you think. Because so does that mean that those places that pay those minimum wage jobs should be closed during school hours? Like they shouldn't open till like 5 o'clock, and they should only be open from like 5 to 10 during the week? You're fucking idiots if that's honestly what you think, because that's never what the minimum wage was intended for. It was never specifically said, well, this is what you should pay children. First of all, I firmly believe children should not be fucking working. They should be in school. They should be getting their education. Work should be the last thing on their mind. You know, and if their parents were being paid a decent wage, maybe some of these kids wouldn't have to work. Nobody thinks about it like that. But no, minimum wage was never intended for kids. It was intended to be the minimum level that a company was allowed to pay a worker to meet the standard of living. It's that simple. And back then it was 25 cents an hour. You know, we're talking back in 1938, almost 100 years ago. But you could live on that back then. You could pay rent and pay your bills, and you'd be all right. You know, I think when I was doing my research, I should have put this in my notes, but I was reading the highest buying power of minimum wage was like somewhere in the 60s. Minimum wage was like $1.60 but it was the equivalent of like $14 and something per hour in like 2024 numbers is what it was saying. So that's when basically minimum wage peaked, was in the 1960s. Now it's a fucking shit show because you've got billion-dollar corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations paying their workers minimum wage. I mean, these are companies that make more money than some small countries. These are private companies, and they won't even pay their employees enough to live on. These are the people that are working full time and still have to get SNAP benefits so that they can eat. And a lot of these idiots will say, "Well, go find a better job." That doesn't solve the problem because then somebody else is going to move into that minimum wage job and going to have the same problem. What do you think the person working that minimum wage job now is going to go find a better paying job and that minimum wage job is just going to disappear? No, the problem is with these companies. That's the issue. I put a post on my personal TikTok just yesterday, I think it was, um, talking about how much people bitch and moan about minimum wage workers saying, "Oh, you think somebody flipping burgers should make the same as a policeman or a fireman or a paramedic or a doctor or all this stupid bullshit?" No, they shouldn't, but they should earn enough to live. Okay, as that minimum wage goes up, everybody else's salaries go up in relation to that. And how do you do that? You close the gap between the workers and the executives. CEOs, I said this in my post, CEOs don't need to make 10, 20, 30, $50 million a year. They don't need 7 and 8 figure fucking salaries plus 7 and 8 figure fucking bonuses. Cut their salaries in half. If they're making 10 million a year, take them down to 5. Take that other 5 million, give it to your fucking employees, the people who actually do the work. Because I guarantee you, the entire executive staff of any major corporation took a month off. Nobody would notice. It would be business as usual. If the entire working force of a major corporation took a month off, they're fucked. That company goes out of business. That's the way it is. That is exactly how it works with any major corporation. So, yeah, close the gap, narrow the gap between the executives and the actual fucking workers, the people who keep that company moving and growing and thriving. It's not that difficult of a concept. But also, the problem is the minimum wage itself and also the cost of living, because cost of living right now is outrageous. And minimum wage is fucking laughable. And I want to make one thing very clear. There is no such thing as unskilled labor. There are different levels of skill. There's no such thing as unskilled because people who work in food service or customer service or anything customer facing, dealing with the public is a fucking skill. It's a skill that I don't have. I hate people. I worked retail straight out of high school. I fucking hated it. I don't have those kind of people skills. So anybody that works in a public facing type job, yeah, they deserve to be paid for it because dealing with the public is a skill. Running a cash register is a skill. Stocking shelves is a skill. They may be simple skills. They may be ones that can be taught within a matter of hours or days. Doesn't take years in school, but it's still a skill. There is no job in this country or in this world, I would dare say, that you can just walk in off the street and start doing with no training whatsoever. None. There's no such thing as unskilled labor. There are different levels of skill, but there is no such thing as unskilled. And I kind of find it hypocritical that people say people who run cash registers, work in customer service, work in food service, don't deserve a living wage when they're doing basically the same job as commissioned salespeople. Look at car salesmen or look at outside salespeople for large companies. They're doing basically the same job. They're facing the public. They're talking people into buying something. They get paid very well for their people skills. And granted, they work on commission. They don't have to worry about an hourly wage or anything like that, which I hate commission as well. Don't think that commission and tipping should not be a thing. Everybody should just get paid a living fucking wage. But nobody's ready for that yet. But that's a salesperson. That's their entire job is people skills. Customer service reps, food service people, they have those same kind of people skills. They deserve to be paid for it. It's as simple as that. But yeah, getting back to what the minimum wage is, because in the U.S. right now, the minimum wage is a joke. It is a joke. It is $7.25 an hour is the federally mandated minimum wage. Now, in some states and localities, they have it higher. I think the highest in the U.S. is like 17.50. Some places in the U.S. have a minimum wage of 17.50, which is okay. That's definitely moving in the right direction. Or like where I'm at in Illinois, minimum wage is $15 an hour, and more specifically in Chicago, Illinois, it's 16.60 an hour. So again, moving in the right direction. But at the federal level, minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. There are only four, with a lower minimum wage than the US. Those four countries are Costa Rica, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. Only ones with lower minimum wage than the United States. That is fucking pathetic. Supposedly the richest country in the world pays its people the least. That honestly that's embarrassing. That is fucking embarrassing. Like I said, there are some states who push their minimum wage higher because they realize it's fucking embarrassing. But let's break this down. Now, based on a 40-hour work week and 4 weeks per month, that's 160 hours a month. At minimum wage, that is $1,160 per month before taxes. Now, let's just say taxes at 18%. That's going to vary from person to person, from state to state. Some states don't have taxes. Some places you have to pay a local, like city tax as well. So let's just say average across the country, 18%. So that means your take home from that $1,160 is approximately 950 bucks a month. No one could live on that. No one. Not with what things cost today. And let's break down the cost of living in the United States. And before I get into this, I'm going to say these numbers that I'm about to throw at you are averages across the US. They're going to vary widely from place to place. But this is average. So it's very generalized, but it is the average for the entire United States. I'm going to start off with rent. Obviously, this is going to vary from place to place. It's going to depend on how big of an apartment you're talking about, where it's located. Like renting a two-bedroom apartment in Chicago is not going to be the same as renting a two-bedroom apartment in Topeka, Kansas. Okay, but this is average for the entire country. And I'm sorry I feel like I have to explain this so many times, but people are dumb. Average rent in the United States, $1,850 a month. If you're making minimum wage, that's already double your fucking monthly take home. Just for rent. Utilities, gas and electric. Now, again, it's going to vary. Not everybody has to pay both of these. Like in my apartment, I don't pay for my heat. I only have to pay my electric bill. But again, average for utilities, $200 a month. Internet service. I don't care what anybody says. Internet is a necessity in today's world. It is a necessity. It's not a luxury. Average internet bill, $85 a month. Phone. Again, it's a necessity. Everybody needs a phone. And it's going to vary depending on what company you have, what type of plan you have, whether or not you're paying for a phone. as part of your bill, how many lines you have, but average $150 a month. Groceries. Again, it's going to depend on your household size, where you shop, all that kind of stuff, but average $665 a month. Health insurance. A lot of people get it through their job at a decent rate. Other people have to pay for it themselves. And it's going to depend on the person as far as like their age, their health, uh, whether it's individual, family, whatever. But so again, average $1,000 a month for healthcare that is fucking ridiculous. Just a little side note, healthcare should not be a for-profit industry. The US is the only developed nation in the world that does not have universal health care for its citizens, but yet everybody keeps screaming, it'd never work. It works in 200 other fucking places. Idiots. But yeah, $1,000 a month for fucking health insurance. A car. Not everybody needs a car, but depending where you live, most people need a car. Average car payment. This blew me away when I looked this up. Now, this is based on the average used car and the average new car, combine them, took the overall average. $640 a month is the average car payment in the United States. That's fucking sick. Just damn. Car insurance. If you have a car, you have to have insurance. $200 a month. Gas. You have a car, you have to put gas in it. $150 a month. So that's the basic necessities for living. Like I said, it's going to vary. Not everybody's going to need a car. Like if you live in a big city like in Chicago, you don't necessarily need a car. We have a good public transportation system, but that doesn't exist everywhere. And somebody like me, I don't work in the city. I work in the suburbs. I need a car. But so all that stuff together, that's basic necessities. $4,940 a month. Almost $5,000 a month. Now, would you like to know how much somebody would need to make to just cover the bare necessities at the average cost? And remember, you still got to pay taxes too. So you can't say, well, you need to make $5,000 a month. Oh, no, because you got to make sure those taxes are paid. You would need to make approximately $6,100 a month, which would give you $5,002 take home based on that 18% tax rate I talked about a minute ago. And that leaves no extra. That just covers your necessities. $6,100 a month. Okay, let's figure out what that would be hourly. $6,100 divided by 160 hours a month, that is $38.13 an hour. But like I said, that leaves you nothing extra. So, forget about savings, forget about emergencies. You're just getting by. That's it. Now, ideally, when I say ideally, this is my opinion of what would be ideal, or not even ideal, but acceptable. I'll say acceptable. It's a better word. If someone was making $6,650 a month, that would be about $5,453 take home, which would allow about $500 a month extra to put in savings for emergencies or for whatever you want. So $6,650 a month hourly, $41.56. That's where we're at. That's what we need to live the average life in the United States. And I know there's going to be people say, well, I don't pay anything close to 1,800 a month for my rent, and I don't pay anything close to $640 for my car. And good for fucking you. So you're below average. Do you want a cookie? But that no, that to be an average person in the United States, you need to make $41 a fucking hour. And like I said, this is going to vary from place to place, which brings me to my next point. Like I said, the federal minimum wage right now is $7.25 an hour. But I don't think the federal government should be setting the minimum wage. I don't think they should be setting a specific number at the federal level because it can vary so widely as far as the cost of living goes. Cost of living in Chicago is a lot higher than the cost of living in Arkansas or Iowa or someplace someplace like that, you know? Cost of living in New York is more than the cost of living in Chicago. What I would love to see, I don't think this will ever happen, but what I would love to see is at the federal level, the minimum wage requirement should require all states or localities or whatever to set their own minimum wage based on the cost of living in that area. All of these expenses that I just went through, whatever the average of those expenses is in, say, Cleveland, that's how you set your minimum wage for Cleveland. Whatever the average is in Miami, that's how you set the minimum wage in Miami. It shouldn't be just a blanket number from the federal government unless they're going to set it at like $50 an hour, then sure, go ahead. They ain't going to do that. But this is one case where I think it should be in the hands of the states because the cost of living does vary so widely from one location to the next. Because yeah, like I said, $41.56 an hour is what it would take to live the average life in the United States. It's pretty fucked up considering the current minimum wage is $7.25. That shit needs to be increased roughly 600%. But yeah, that's never going to happen. And there is inevitably going to be people that argue that minimum wage should never be that high for unskilled workers. First of all, I'll say it again, there's no such thing as an unskilled worker. And secondly, stop and think for a minute. If the minimum wage makes a big jump like that, what do you think higher paying jobs are going to do? They're going to make just as big a jump. If the minimum wage increases by 50%, every other salary needs to increase by 50%, and so on. And like I said earlier, the salaries that need to come down are these executives that are making 7 and 8 figures a fucking year and getting 7 and 8 figure fucking bonuses. I'm not even talking about stock options and shit like that. I don't care. Have all the fucking stock you want to have. But if you are getting a $10 million salary, fuck you. Nobody needs that. And don't come and tell me about how hard CEOs fucking work. Being a CEO is not about how hard you work. It's about who you know. It's about connections. It's not about how fucking hard you work. Like I said, any major corporation in the United States, the entire executive staff could take a month off and nobody would notice. But if the actual workers took a month off, oh, everybody would notice. Company I work for, and bear in mind, I love the company I work for. I like our executive team. I think the company I work for takes very good care of its employees. That's why I've worked there for as long as I have. I love the company I work for right now. And the CEO, yeah, he's a rich man, but he's not a greedy man. That's that's where it comes in. Yeah, he is a rich man. He built this company from the ground up, but he doesn't take everything and shove it in his pocket. He puts a lot back into his company and back into his employees. And I get paid very well for what I do. So yeah, I think that's a model that a lot of companies ought to follow. But there's no justification for paying someone $8 million a year and giving them a $5 million bonus at the end of the year when your average employees can't even afford to fucking eat because you don't pay them enough. There's no excuse for it. There's no justification for it. And people are going to try to justify it. They're going to tell you how hard the CEOs and entrepreneurs have worked to earn all that money and blah, blah, blah. Fuck you and fuck them, you brainwashed fucking automaton. Because you don't seem to realize that you're getting fucked just as hard as everybody else. Just because you're making more than minimum wage, you think you have it so fucking great. You don't. You're getting fucked over too, because you should be getting paid a lot more too. If the minimum wage is supposed to provide a minimum standard of living, then think about how much somebody who's making, say, 5 times the current minimum wage, think about how much they should be making. And it's perfectly doable. People are going to say, oh, it caused prices to go through the roof. No, it won't. No, it won't. Like I said, ta take the money from the upper levels. And I promise you, if you start paying these people a decent wage, number one, they won't have to work 3 fucking jobs and be dead tired and zoned out when they come into work. They'll be more productive. They will be happier. Your company will thrive. But, if the CEO's not getting their a new yacht with their fucking bonus check, that's considered a failure for some reason. So yeah, basically wages in the US are so fucked up that it's unbelievable. Minimum wage should be 6 times what it actually is. And wages are not the only problem. The cost of living, inflation, and all that shit is a huge issue. I mean, rent, for one thing, $1,850 is the average across the board in the US. Obviously, rent in a place like New York City is much, much higher than a place in say, Iowa. Or even here in Chicago. A studio apartment in downtown Chicago running like 5 grand. That's ridiculous. That is unreasonable. No apartment should cost $5,000 a month. No apartment. I don't care where it is. I don't care how big it is. No apartment should cost $5,000 a month. But then when you get into those conversations, you have to start talking about property taxes and mortgages and shit like that. And it's insane what things cost nowadays. Just the simple basics of living. It's insane what they cost. But I think it's gonna wrap up my little rant about wages. But yeah, minimum wage should be increased like sixfold, which means everybody else's salary should be increased at the same rate. I'm not saying it shouldn't. Yes, higher paid jobs, more highly skilled positions, obviously should be paid more. That's a given. I don't know why people think, you know, minimum wage people should get $40 an hour and tradesmen or doctors or firemen or policemen or whatever shouldn't get the same kind of bump in salary. They should. Minimum wage goes up 600%. Everybody else's salary should go up 600%. But like I said, it's never going to happen. At least not in my lifetime, I don't think. I want to know when we're going to get to the Star Trek future where money's not a thing anymore and people just work to better themselves and there's such a sense of community and everybody, just works, like I said, to better themselves and they no such thing as money. That's why I love Star Trek. The Star Trek future just seems awesome. Like I said, I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for this week. I appreciate everybody checking out the show. I know I've been gone for a couple of months. Just been, yeah, just been dealing with life. Nothing bad. A lot of good stuff going on. And just haven't sat down to record a new show. But here we are, brand new year, 2026. Again, thank you to everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of fun stuff that really does help out the show as far as placement and searches and things like that. Make sure you follow on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod. And you can find all that on my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the little QR code right there in the corner of your screen. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dillygafpod@gmail.com. So with that, I am going to sign off. And if anyone has any issues with anything that I have said here today, ask yourself one question. Do I look like I give a fuck?
'Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.